In Adobe Photoshop Elements 2020, there are several effects in this category down at the bottom right that you can use to adjust the coloring, blurriness, and so on of your photos. The main thing to remember here is not to select the option you want, but how to get out after you selected that. You'll want to hit Control Z at the same time, or go up to Edit and hit Undo when you pick an option but want a different one. Otherwise, you'll go along, click one after another, and all the effects build up on your image, and by the end you have something you really can't work with much at all. So we're going to undo all those, and then we're going to quickly flip through the available options to give you an idea of what you can do. First of all, you can black and white the center but keep the color on the edges. You can have a horizontal color fade, which I think is a nice effect, especially for this photo. You can have a vertical color fade, and it's going to go through the center like so. You can desaturate specific colors, so with this one that we've selected here, we've taken out the green entirely from this image. It was popping out a bit too much and ruins the effect the rest of the photo had. Now we're desaturating the blues, and the green pops out even more, but if that was your intent when taking the photograph, you've really helped the lens flare up. Then this is a colorful center, which has a rainbow effect in the center of your image, and the rest becomes black and white. And finally, in this folder, you have desaturate reds, which takes reds out of the photo completely and is most common when you're trying to edit out a specific color and possibly make part of the image black and white. So this would be a very trendy look right here. Then to switch what effect you're editing, you want to drop down this menu at the top right and choose one of the other options below. Here we have, I'll show you the other ones as well. There's what's known as a bloom effect. And this one you see has made the center camera pop out, and the hand is blurry. The line here is what really makes it stand out from the rest of the picture, but it's not the right effect for this photo. Next we have an oil pastel. This one makes it look like it's a painting. It's on the edges, so it's not as noticeable here, but still not what we're looking for. Then we have soft flat color, and this one makes the edges a little cleaner. It doesn't make them as aggressive as before. They're nice and they blend with the rest of the image. Then we have soft focus here, and as you can see, it's almost just a little bit blurry, but we can still make out the camera and most of the smaller details on it. Next up, we have the final in this folder, and that's soft green, and this one gives it almost a retro vibe. Any image you do this to is going to have a very retro vibe about it, just because the way the color comes through. It looks a little older, kind of nostalgia look, so to speak. Next up, we have monotone color, where it only selects one color and tints the entire picture this way. This is especially good if you're going for a 1920s look on something. First of all, you just monotone black and white. Then you have tint blue here, which is more modern, but still rather dark. We have tint green here. And this one already has a bit more warmth to it than the tint blue did. We have tint sepia, which is what you'll want if you're going for westerns in particular. You have the tint red, which is one of my personal favorites. I think this adds a lot to pictures kind of gives them a more depressive look while at the same time drawing a larger crowd. And then finally tint purple, which I think is a very unique option, and you can tell there's color there, but it's closer to black and white. Very unique effect to use that I often use. Our next category is painting, and you can make it look like a chalk painting here. You can make it look like an oil painting. Sometimes these may have to load if it's a more complex painting style. This one I don't like as much as the chalk look, although the colors are more saturated. And there are other ways to do that without having to deal with this around the edges. And finally, watercolor painting. This one has a lot of the colors stand out, but more aspects in the background are going to be blurry. I would say my favorite probably is the chalk, the very first chalk painting here. I'd say the chalk painting followed by the watercolor painting and finally the oil painting, I would say, is the worst of these effects. But those will do a lot for your picture without having to edit anything else. Then you have these panels, which instead of having multiple images and represented in each of the boxes, it takes the one image you has and puts it in a unique way. So this one is a maze, zigzag through. This one is horizontal. Oh, remember you have to Control Z or go up to Edit and hit Undo so that the effects don't build up on each other. So you have this style, which is a horizontal with two horizontal sidebars. You have a spiral image known as pathway, kind of like a labyrinth idea as well. You see a lot of these in home goods stores. And you have squares, a more basic standard, but still does more for your picture, although I wouldn't use the squares on this photo. Then you have vertical bars, which are like the top option above it, except these ones are more, these are all across the page rather than only being on either side. And finally, a really good effect, but one you'll probably want to have another photo on. This is known as zigzag. And I would say this is the best for the photo that we have here. Next we have seasons. So you take a picture one time of year and you want to make it look like it was taken in a different season. You can select one of these to do that. You can make it look like it was winter, summer, kind of snow, or I would say more fall look, or rain, kind of a spring look to the picture. This one isn't going to do as much because there's no nature aspect in it. It's a city shot, but there's the rain picture. Some of these would make good Instagram filters if you want to go another level up. This one I'd say is a little overkill. You might want to change the effects scope on that one, or substitute it for rain. I've seen some snowstorms that look a lot like the rain filter did. Here's summer. See, it gives it more warmth. This almost has that retro filter vibe again, like we had just a few folders ago, but this one has more of the picture kept in its original state with just more of that warming effect. I would highly consider using this in a future project. And then finally you have what's known as winters. This is the colder looking one, and it doesn't look as inviting as Summer did, and it leaves some color, but it's almost entirely black and white. Then we have textures we can add to our picture. We only have 2 of these, but they're kind of neat. We have lizard skin over here. And this one looks a lot like the oil painting as before, but it's not as up and down, almost different horizontal and vertical bars like the actual oil painting filter has. And then we have the rubber stamp effect, and this is going to make it look very much like a silhouette. This is a more complex thing, of course. It has to decide what in the photo is important and what should be taken out altogether. And here we go. This one, once again, you'd want a layer behind it inside of Photoshop because it sticks out like a sore thumb right now, and it's not the right kind of effect for this picture. You'd want something with many more bright colors in the background, or more of the subject in the frame of the picture. And last but not least, we have vintage, and this is really that idea of nostalgic pictures slash miscellaneous for any other filters they couldn't get in before. So we have this one right here. This is called colored pencil sketch, and I think they could have had some more color in it personally, and the effect isn't as good as it should have been. Then you have the old paper effect, kind of give that late 1800s, early 1900s look to your photos. And it also gives some artificial wrinkling, if you can see there, to make it look like it was an actual photo. You have another old photo here. And this one was taken in poor circumstances. The film didn't come out the way it should, and it looks a lot more dilapidated than the other one, but loses the wrinkle effect. So you'd have to select that one as well if you wanted both picture effects on the same one. And see, if you know what you're doing, you can layer these all from the sidebar and not worry about hitting undo and messing up your work. And then you come out on the other end with something that is truly unique, because it's a combination of several effects. Then you have old vignette here. This one is a great nightclub feel almost. I really like this one. It makes things pop out. It's like a good jazz vibe from this one. Pencil sketch. This is one of those 2000s trendy kinds of things that doesn't look as good as it did about 20 years ago when it was all the rage. And then we have tinted old, and this one has a lot more purple than back up in the monotone color, and it's almost too much, especially for this image. I haven't been able to use this effectively anywhere yet. And those are all of the filters in Adobe Photoshop Elements 2020.